a little bit of a chat for Poles and Crocs. I'm here with Will, and I'll hand over to you in a second, just get you to do an intro, and then we'll just jump right into it. So if you want to introduce yourself, Will.
Yeah, so I'm Will from London. Just did my first kind of major run ever in my entire life around Edale with the Poles and Crocs crew, which was amazing. And looking forward to spending a bit of time just sharing my journey with anyone who may want to listen and maybe doesn't think that they could do what I've just done, which was me a year ago. I didn't think I was going to be able to do this run, and I have just done it. So yeah, looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, that's incredible for certain, and I'm very keen to get into that. Think before we jump into that, um, what's your background with the group and how did you end up getting involved with the group for anybody that's listening but not familiar?
So I have done no exercise my entire life, except for school when I was forced to do it. So luckily, a good friend of mine, Khan, who's one of the group, has prodded me many times in my life to do exercise, and it took until I was 35 for me to listen to him, and also took I guess a little bit of a kind of downslide in my life, a little bit of let's say anxiety, depression, a bit of tough times, and hitting those kind of lower moments, allowed me to think about life and think about what I haven't been doing to help myself. And I'm one of those things that I came to the conclusion, what was that I could do with some exercise. I could probably do with hanging around some guys who were not judgmental and were also happy to kind of, run with you and kind of push you to excel in something you haven't really done before. In my case, never before.
Excellent. Was there something in particular that pushed you to actually take the jump to come out with the group, or what? I guess is your what was your journey to coming out with the group? I think we're probably jumping ahead a little bit there in
No,
terms of
no, no,
timeline, but
100%. I mean, you know, I've never really been a big, I've never been in a group of guys who've done exercise. I've never done team sports. So for me, it really was, starting from the deep end. And I actually started off doing a couch to 5K. So from doing absolutely no exercise, I started last summer doing a couch to 5K, which is a really good app online. If anyone hasn't seen it before, I definitely recommend if you're just wanting to start off into any sort of running. It's really non-pushy, non-invasive, and just gets you ticking away. And literally, at first, I could barely run for 60 seconds. I was running around this area. I live in Southeast London, and I was having friends literally going, "Will, what are you doing?" As I was kind of half running for half, for 30 seconds or a minute, and then walking for 5 minutes. And that's where you start off. You get a little bit of confidence, I guess, that your body can do something it's never done before. But that takes time. It took a good couple of months for me to get into the mindset of, oh, actually, I can run, because I couldn't run at first. It really just was like it was a non-action for my body. I was very overweight. I was over 100 kilograms, and yeah, everything was just extremely slow. So started off with the couch to 5K, and then after I got to a point where I could do my first 5K, which was very slow, but I was in about October last year, 2025. That's when the Poles and Crocs team kind of came together and offered me a sort of pathway into sort of pushing myself more with exercise, not only running but also in the gym. Again, I'd never been to the gym before 2025. And so, yeah, they put a pathway for me to kind of very slowly start, 1 mile runs a day or 1 mile runs every other day. And even that felt like a lot, back then doing just, 5 miles a week. My legs were aching, my body was hurting. At the same time, I was being told, not what to eat, but just what I should eat in terms of kind of protein, which obviously, again, I've never dieted, I've never, watched what I've eaten, but just, little things that you could do to kind of help with that initial pain, because there was pain at first. My body was changing, I was extremely weak, my feet were hurting. And not only that guidance, but guidance into sort of what sort of shoes to wear. Because at first I was running in the shoes that I would wear to a club or a bar, which again, some of the team
how
probably
did that go?
Well, it came with blisters, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
um,
You learn those
but
lessons quick.
yeah, and you do, but it's also so important again to push back at what the Poles and Crocs sort of team offer is, it isn't just go and run by yourself, but there are people there who are happy to give you their guidance. They have worn different shoes, they've had the blisters themselves, they know what works, they know what doesn't work, and they're not going to say to you, hey, you've got to buy this, but they're going to say, listen, why don't you check these things out, or this, and you find your own way. And certainly, I've worn shoes, and it might seem a bit silly talking about shoes, but if you're going to run 30 miles a week, believe me, your shoes make a difference, as I now know. So it's those little things that sort of came together along with the programming for when I should run, how I should run. And again, at the beginning, it was very difficult. I found even 7 miles a week daunting. There were days that I didn't run. Um, there were days that one of the guys would contact me and go, "Why haven't you run today?" And if I didn't have an excuse, which there really generally isn't a proper excuse unless your house is burning down, they don't make you feel guilty, but they will put it in. They will make it clear that there's a reason you're doing this running, and if you're not willing to kind of push yourself, then you never know what you're going to be able to do. And when I first did my first 5K, and I'll tell you this, I was so scared of doing a 5K. In my head, it was this big, big, big sort of, I'm never going to be able to do that 5K, 5,000 meters. So it took until one of the guys actually said, come to my house. And I got there. He said, we'll go for a little jog. And then he just said, we're doing your 5K today. And I didn't have to think too much about it. It took me to Richmond Park. And I did that first 5K months later than I probably should have done or could have done. But a lot of that is mental. So actually having someone to kind of almost hold your hand and not tell you you can do it, but allow you to do it yourself. This is the importance, I think, of not being pushed too hard from behind, but being, you know, I would say like dangling a carrot almost, but in a way which is, in a soft way. And it was all very soft, to get where I am now. I haven't been bullied or pushed in the days that I haven't done a run. Yeah, I might have been made to feel slightly guilty, but maybe that's what I need as a person. I don't say maybe,
Accountable.
yeah, maybe not everyone needs that, but I certainly did at the beginning of this journey. Need a little bit of a little bit of a push just to, sometimes your brain tells you, is this what I should be doing? Is this really what I can do? And you start to make excuses in your brain.
Everybody
Um,
does that.
yeah,
Everybody does it. Definitely.
but it's having those guys, at Poles and Crocs, just giving you that feedback, telling you that feeling of pain will go, that feeling of you can't do it will go, and slowly but surely your confidence builds. You do your first 5K, and then by that point you're running maybe 3 4 days a week, and it's starting to feel a bit more natural. The people around you get used to the fact that you're not going to be going to the pub and having a drink anymore in the evening because you're doing your run now. So maybe your friendship group changes slightly. Mine definitely has, in a positive way. Some people that I used to see every day and drink with every day, now they're doing some running. They're maybe drinking the other days. And so yeah, it's an important thing to have people around you where they're not going to bully you, they're not going to push you to do the running, but you're going to see them do it. I've never had a Strava app or a Garmin app, but just linking that to friends and people who do the runs and actually seeing that they are actually doing the running that they say they are. People do
Yes.
run 5 6 days a week, and that's not kind of abnormal. In my head, that was a pipe dream to run 5 6 days a week. Didn't have the time, didn't have the energy, didn't have the strength, didn't have the mental grit, and then you end up learning that you do step by step. And that's a wonderful feeling, to be honest, to see and feel that you can do something that 6 months ago was a pipe dream.
That's incredible. Just if we could circle back to just unpack a couple of things that you mentioned there, which I think are actually really, really important points. So one of them was the mental element of it all. So take a step back from that. Just to highlight, you'd said before there you struggled to run for 60 seconds when you started out. That's not an exaggeration, is it? That was literally your capacity.
And 100%. I mean, over if I skip back a bit further, let's go back 10 years, right? Every now and then in those 10 years, I've done, 2 weeks of doing some squats in my house that one of my friends put together for me, and then I would stop that for 2 or 3 years. And every now and then something would happen where I'd think, okay, well, I lost a girlfriend, or I felt I was feeling a little bit down, so I'd do some exercise, but it never stuck. And I knew at the time that my mind wasn't ready for it. I'll do it for a couple of weeks and it never stuck. So doing that couch to 5K, actually the biggest step was actually just starting the app off, was downloading the app, admitting to myself that I was at the point where I needed the app to do that exercise, because otherwise I couldn't do it. It wasn't at that point, it wasn't a physical problem. It was just that I was sitting there looking, should I download this? Am I ready for this? And that probably was one of the hardest steps, just getting myself mentally prepared to change my life, and there has been a change in life.
That's awesome. You've segued cleanly into the next point I wanted to raise there, which was you'd mentioned um, the mental element of it all and how hard you'd found that. I think the reality is that that is often the hardest part for anybody. So what challenges, what mental challenges did you find, and how do you think you found a way to overcome those on like just a day-to-day basis as you were finding things tough? Like as an example, like
I
some days
think,
I'll look and just
sorry.
look at my shoes for like 2 hours before I actually get out of the door. Like it's how did you overcome those daily challenges?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just understanding that I was being lazy and admitting that I was being lazy, which is actually a tough thing to admit to yourself. That I did have the time in the day to do a run, because sometimes you just say to yourself, well, actually, I've got work, I work a 9, 10 hour day. Do I really have time to come back and do that run? Or do I want to come back and watch the TV, which I've been doing for 15 years in my house? So actually just saying to myself, Will, I come back at 7 o'clock at night. I do have the time to do a run. And it's almost retraining your brain, and yeah, look, finding things to not do. I'll do the washing instead. Better get the washing done. I hate doing the washing, but I hate running even more, was the mindset. So, let's put the run to the back of my mind, do the washing, iron my shirt for tomorrow, cook something. And then, oh, do I have enough time in the day? And actually, when you start doing runs at 11 o'clock at night, or 5 a.m. in the morning before work, I think for me that was a massive mental block broken. That actually I didn't have to wake up just in time to get up and go for work. I didn't have to come home and straight away take my shoes off and put my tracksuit on, and then I'm a couch potato for the rest of that evening, because I'd done that for so long. That was my comfort zone. So it is breaking that comfort zone, and understanding again that you are probably going to not see some friends. You are probably going to miss out on some nights out. You're going to miss out on things that you've been doing for many, many years. Again, things that made you comfortable: drinking, hanging out with friends, seeing girls, whatever that is. You're gonna have to take a step back from that in order to make those changes. And that's tough. Actually making those changes is tough, and feeling those changes. Leaving lunches, dinners early, not going to dinners because you want to do the run, or leaving the dinner, not drinking, which again for me was a real positive. And then go doing a run at 10, 11 o'clock at night full of food. There's moments where you're like, oh, come on, I've just enjoyed a delicious meal. Do I really want to put my shoes on, run in the freezing cold with the jacket, Gore-Tex? But slowly and surely you actually look forward to that. And that's the strange thing, that what you used to kind of find so daunting, and what you used to find such a horrendous thought. You wake up in the morning and be like, oh gosh, it's Monday, it's my run day today. What have I got for today? Look on my app. Oh, it's 4 miles. Bloody hell, how am I going to do that? And then getting back from work and actually going, you know what? I'm not going to even put my stuff down. I'm just going to change my trainers or put my stuff downstairs so I can't even walk upstairs, get changed before I can even go up to my room. And then I'm just out again. And sometimes you have to trick your brain, I think, into doing those kind of things. Don't let your brain see the things it wants: the TV, the couch, the drink, the food. You got to you got to put the blinkers on and just go, right, actually, I'm here to run today. And then once you get back, guess what? That stuff is still going to be waiting for you, and it will feel even better once you've done that run. Again, I learned that is not how I felt a year ago.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Yeah, I love it. You know what? I'm smiling so much because I love it. Just that clear mental shift that you've made because you've started on the program and then seen the rewards and went, actually, I can do this and I like it. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. So, timescales wise, from the first day you went out and ran till the day you cracked that 5K, how long was that for you?
It was probably about 2 months, and it should have been less, but that was mental. Physically, actually, my body changed faster than my brain expected it to. So, by the time I could actually do that 5K run, something in my head was stopping me. So I would go for this runs, and then I would kind of walk a little bit and then run a little bit. And that's because you learn that way through the Couch to 5K app. But a mental block was just 5K is too much for my body, too much for me to handle. That's not for me. So actually having someone in the end go, Will, we're going to do this today. And not allow my brain to kind of think about it too much, but just go and actually just doing that unlocked a massive gear for me. That kind of first step, that first kind of I did a 5K run. That's something I never thought I'd be able to say. And when I look back at it now, or even this evening, I'm going to do more than a 5K run after this call. But at that point in time, that was the pinnacle. Like, do I ever need to do more than 5K? It sounded so big. It sounded like a marathon at that point. It really did. And so when you start to kind of chip away at those kind of boundaries, first mile for me, first 1 minute of running, literally, my lungs burning. I get to 2 minutes. I'm looking at my watch, doing a couch to 5K, going, when's counting down 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Gosh, I can walk again now. Walking, and I'm, struggling to kind of keep my breath. I got stitch. And then slowly, 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 you start to do more and more. You run a little bit more, you walk a little bit less, you've got a bit more confidence. You buy new trainers, buy some running shorts. Oh, wow, it's better than running in trackies. Can't believe I've been running in these heavy trackies for the last 2 months. What have I been doing? But it's what I felt comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm resisting getting it. You mentioned before about like being a bit boring talking about trainers or something, but as you'll learn about the group, we love kit chat. So I'm resisting getting into the kit chat. Honestly, it's another level once you get talking to lads about kit. Um, so so that was about 2 months to hitting your 5K. What did the process look like from there in terms of that journey then from the 5K to Edale, which you've just cracked, and
So,
any other milestones in there as well, like other sort of big markers that you hit?
yeah, definitely. And I mean, before that point, I did that 5K. It was the whole training program was basically up to me. I did my couch to 5K. I definitely skipped out numbers of days. It was very informal. And at that point, when I did the 5K, I was asked, listen, do you want to take this to the next step now? Is it something that actually you want to try and do? Or are you comfortable where you are now? And I said, no, listen, let's see where we can go, right? And I didn't know where I was going to go at that stage. I had no idea. Less than a year later, at that point, I'll be running Edale with the guys. But yeah, so they started off putting a program together for me, which was a weekly program, step by step. It was all very, very straightforward, and I had someone I could talk to um, pretty much all the time, to be honest. Within reason, someone I could reach out to, WhatsApp, just to give me a bit of guidance on, what was actually said. A lot of the terminology, running terminology, easy, steady, the
Yeah,
actual way you run, again, for me, it was just run, jog, or walk. That was what I'd done my entire life, and most of it had been walking, not jogging or running. So to just understand the terminology, what does easy mean? How fast shall I run? And interestingly enough, you don't, and I only know this now, you don't learn running by running as fast as you can. You actually have got to run and put yourself in a kind of steady zone, and get your body used to running slowly. Sometimes the hardest thing is actually running slowly, especially when you've got, 3 miles to do. Your body's telling you, let's get this out the way. But the training's telling you, no, you've got to run a 15-minute mile. And so you've got to actively slow yourself down, and that's all part of getting your muscles and your joints ready. That first couple of months, as we started to push the running up, and we started to do 10 miles a week or 7 miles a week, certainly bones and bits in my body, my legs, my back, things that I'd never felt before, I felt, and it started to be sore. And yeah, I was hobbling around a lot, to be honest. I was blisters come, blisters go. This aches on the side of your leg, this hurts on your foot. Lots of the feedback was then, how to stretch. Things that, again, I'd never done before. Stretch, how to use the bands to kind of release pressure in the muscles, and that was really, really invaluable in those first few months, because otherwise I would have just stopped. When pain comes, the normal thing to think is, right, that's not good, I'll stop that now. But actually, who knew part of how your body works is you got to kind of run and push through that pain. I'd never done that in my life before. Probably a lot of you out there going, well, yeah, well, that is how it works. But I didn't know that. So
We've
it's
all been
learning
there
that.
for
Mm.
certain. For certain. I think I think a big part of everything you're explaining here, a lot of what you've said there, everybody's been through the same thing. It's just a journey. So like going through those, what you're now looking at is shorter runs, and you're looking back and thinking, wow, that, at the time that you're looking and thinking, this is the biggest thing I've ever done by far. This is incredible. And it's just a journey. Everybody goes through it. Nobody just wakes up one day and they're like, and go out and do this huge thing. It's a process. And so I think there's just a lot of gems in what you're explaining there for other people that might be in the same situation as you were in, where they're thinking, I could never go and do that. The reality is, if you want to, you can.
And if you've got the right support, I'm a firm believer, and I've done it, that, and I'll say this, that the couch to 5K was a great starting point, but having the Poles and Crocs team, not only as a kind of, okay, look what those guys can do, but also, having that kind of very honest approach in terms of the training. No one there is like running around like a superhero. Everyone admits they've had some tougher days and some longer days, and they've all been through it. So, it's nice to have real people around you when you're trying to change yourself, right? And people that are gonna not even listen, but just not judge when you're jumping onto those things. And again, everyone is going to start at a certain position. For me, I probably started as low in fitness as you can probably get without you know yeah, without being unwell, to be honest, because I could barely move, I could barely walk, and my body's changed a lot. As I said, I've lost about 15, 18 kilograms throughout the last year.
That's wild. That's a
And
big chunk of change.
that's not by dieting. I make it clear. Like, I eat exactly as I ate before. I eat a bit more protein, as kind of advice, but I don't eat anything special. I don't diet. I still have a beer every now and then. That is simply from exercise, and probably, yeah, subconsciously eating slightly better because you're putting in the training. And I think a lot of this comes kind of almost like building blocks. You do the training and that makes you feel good. And then you think, what else can I do? Well, I'll stop smoking, and then I'll drink a bit less, and then I'll eat a bit better, and then I won't have that pudding. Whatever it is, it all connects, and you start to kind of slowly but surely become more confident. You're a little bit more able to not only look after yourself, but look after the people around you, because you've got that little bit more energy, you've got that little bit more time, you know you've got more time because you've made it, because you've run 25 miles in a week. And if you've run 25, 30 miles in a week, surely you've got enough time to go and check on your friend. You've got enough time to, you know, check up on that person who you might not have done before when you were just on the sofa without being out and about. So, not only are you benefiting yourself, but I truly believe that by doing things like this and improving your own life and getting yourself into better mental shape, physical shape, any type of shape, that you're also benefiting the people around you, your friends, your loved ones, your family, your colleagues at work, because you will have more time for them. There'll be moments where you're a bit achy, and yeah, you might think in the short term, oh gosh, I haven't got time for this guy today because my legs are aching and I'm sore. But certainly the next day or the next day, you're going to look back and go, you know what, I've got time and I can help and I can push. And I've got the energy to do this. It's funny how actually having less time on your hands gives you more time on your hands. It's a quite interesting way the world works. It opens up more life. You realize you need a little bit less time by yourself, wallowing by yourself. I don't need to be on the sofa for 3 hours anymore to work, for my body to work. I don't need to rest as much. And I got more time to do things that I like and love and hang out with the people that I like and love and, do stuff with my flat and, buy some new clothes because you lost some weight. Things that I haven't done for 10 years. Things that not everyone might want to do, but things that I like to do, but I kind of lost a little bit over some time. You start to put on weight, you're inside the house a lot. You don't worry about buying that nice shirt anymore. You don't worry about buying nice trainers. And now I'm buying running trainers and I feel okay buying some nice trainers because, you put in that work, so you kind of deserve it. I think that's really important. And I think we lose that through time. Not everyone, but people do lose that feeling of kind of, I can do something for myself. Which definitely the running and being with the team has kind of opened up for me. You look after yourself, you can look after people around you better. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Um, so Edale then, we've talked a bit about that. So for anybody that doesn't know, it's it's called the Edale Skyline. It's based on a race that occurs in Edale, and it's around about 22 miles over the local hills there. I forget how much elevation is in it now. I think is it about 1400 meters, I think.
I think so, yeah.
There's
13,
certainly
1400
some
meters, yeah.
there's some climbing in there. It's enough to make it feel like your legs have done something for certain. It's not just a flat run, is it? So I guess let's just touch upon that a little bit, and I guess take me through the sort of introduction to Adale, the first discussion you had around it, and the process leading up to that, how that went, just in terms of whatever your experience was, in terms of either training or your mental process, any apprehensions you had, whatever that might have been.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, January was when I was asked, listen, you've been doing some running for a couple of months now. You're getting better at running. You know, let's put a challenge in place. Let's see how much you can do. And the Edale run, because these guys do some longer runs. I can tell you that. But as a starting point, I think it was a well chosen run. It was in the summer. Nice to be out and about. I think anyway. And yeah, 22, 23 miles to me sounds like a huge amount, but for these guys, and I hope I can say this is kind of a beginning run or a fun run. But for me, it wasn't that. At least in my mind in January, I was thinking of it like this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done. And then the training did change up after I said, listen, I do want to do this. I knew I knew a few of the guys already in the group, but kind of softly knew them, not say well known, but seen them, out and about in nights out a couple of times over the years. But I really didn't know what to expect. So the training vamped up. I was doing 6 days a week training, running 6 days a week and going to the gym 3 days a week. So, at that point, you do really have to make life changes. Again, these are positive. You're cutting out things that probably you didn't either need to do, or you're just making arrangements around things that you have to do. And that means like running in the evening, running late at night, running, sometimes 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Now that doesn't sound lovely, but actually there's something very romantic about that. I use the word romantic because actually if you ever run by yourself at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and there's no one else there, and there's a bit of rain coming down and you've got your Gore-Tex on and you can just see lights flickering. There is something quite romantic about that. And I never would have thought I'd said that, but that happened. January, February was bitingly cold. I'm running around South London. Luckily, I've got some parks near me, but I also run through the streets. I used to run around places that I haven't been in 10, 15 years, places that I went to when I was a teenager, had parties. I'm sort of remembering things and going, oh gosh, I've been there before in the middle of the night, but I was drunk. And now I'm doing it at 3 a.m. in the morning with my Gore-Tex on. And again, that's a great feeling. Gym was completely new to me. A lot of strength training, squats, deadlift, and again, never done those movements before. It's amazing how quickly your body can start to improve, especially when you do that with the running. What I've realized is the gym work and the running comes hand in hand, and your body responds to that. I mean, I can see it in the guys that do the runs, and I can see it in my own body that, this is obviously a combination that works. It isn't just faff. It isn't just stuff that you read online. This is actually working for loads of guys, and you can see the impact of that. So doing that then for 6 months, basically from January all the way through, and every month that ramped up a little bit, the training changed a little bit, and some of it was incredibly hard. This is entailing progression runs on the last, again, I wouldn't know what that term was until a couple of months ago, but progression run on a Friday night. This is a run where you go from kind of running, 12-minute miles to 11-minute miles, and you do 6 or 7 miles of that. And that's a tough thing to do on a Friday night after 5 days of heavy work. And you've then got a run on Saturday morning, which is a half marathon. And that's something, again, which was a first time for me. So I went from the 5K in sort of October, November to sort of January, February, literally doing half marathons every other Saturday. Which even when I talk about it now, sounds absolutely crazy that I could have done that, but you do. And at first, there's a lot of walking. There's a lot of, I had some friends show me, routes, and you've got to learn where to run, how to connect parks, because 13 miles is actually quite a long way, and you can't just do that up and down your street. You have to find a path. You have to know where you're going. You have to be able to find a few shops every now and then to neck a Lucozade. And all that's part of the journey. And it's also opening your mind up. You think about running routes, but actually when you're running, your mind turns off a little bit, except for a little thing that goes, okay, where should I go next? And you kind of a little bit know where you're going, but your mind takes over. And before you know it, you're like, oh, I've done 7 miles. I was meant to go, oh, that's fine. And then your mind kind of has an automatic, GPS in it. And that's an amazing thing to sort of come together. And then you kind of think, oh, gosh, I've run 13 miles and somehow I've managed to get back to my house just at 12.8 miles. Brilliant. Well done, Will. Now time to have some lunch. And that's your Saturday. And if you wake up early in the morning, you then can have a really good bit of grub on Saturday, midday. The rest of your weekend, you can enjoy it because you've done 6 days of heavy exercise. So whether that's going to have a big meal or maybe having a couple of glasses of wine or a few beers, that is fine, to have that. And that balance is restored in life, right? Part of that balance is you work hard and you can play hard. And that certainly is part of that training. There was none of like, you cannot drink. There was none of that, you cannot go out. If you do the training, Will, as long as you do the training, you can do what else you want, and I want to make that clear. There is none of this kind of harshness. No, you've got to be in bed at this time. You've got to do this. It's not structured to the point where, it's prison. It is structured in a way where as long as you can do the runs and as long as you can do the gym and you're eating sensibly, which for me was just enough protein, anything else I could eat. And you just do it. You end up doing it. I went to New York during that process to see my brother. I ran in New York. Lovely. I would never have done that before. I wouldn't have seen sights in New York, but I was doing 6 mile runs in Manhattan at 5 a.m. in the morning, and it was amazing. And Yeah, that was my pathway to Edo. It was lots of running, 25, 30 miles a week. It was 3 gym sessions a week of heavy weights. And apart from that, I went to work and did my normal life. I saw friends, saw family, and saw my body change, saw my mental state change, became a happier person.
That's incredible. Yeah, you've touched on a really important point there. We've covered off quite a lot there around how you've changed physically, but let's just dip into that mental piece. It sounds like, I mean, it's great because to hear you sort of you're enjoying the process so much, which is just really, really wholesome. How do you think exactly it has impacted you mentally?
We'll talk about procrastination, right? And I've always been a procrastinator, someone who I will do that in a couple of weeks' time, or I will do that when I have done this, and you end up pushing life back, pushing things back that you should have done, you want to do. And one of the biggest benefits I've seen by doing these runs and by sticking to the training plan, um, is that you feel more comfortable jumping to complete those things that you've pushed back over the years. So some things like, silly things like around the house, just completing things that I've looked at for 2 years, 3 years that have bugged me. And for whatever reason, I've just been like, no, I haven't got the ability to do that. I haven't got the mental state to do that. I better go on the sofa and relax. Now, because I can do the run, what's to stop me doing that thing in the kitchen or changing the bathroom around? Silly things like that. But I would say the biggest thing is just being able to feel more comfortable in my own skin. It's as you get through your 20s and your early 30s, you do work, you have relationships. Work's okay for me. Relationships have been pretty good too, but you have ups and downs in life, and certainly I have had. Some of them are self-inflicted for me. Uh, I've definitely had a bit of depression, and I felt low self-esteem over the last few years in terms of how I look, and just confidence to do things in life. That's why I talk about procrastination. You end up not having the confidence just to do even the most simplest things in life, to do things that some people might go, oh, I can do that whenever. But for me, those things felt like a mountain, kind of like that first 5K did. So you start to conquer that 5K, you feel great. And then you look at your life and go, you know what? I can probably get on with that too. And then you do that, and then that's okay, and you don't die from it, and you're feeling all right from it. And then actually you build on that, you build a connection. You think about, oh, I haven't looked after that friend for a while because I haven't had the mental capacity to. And then you do that, and it's a bit of a waterfall effect. And not only affecting yourself and you're building your own confidence, you can start to push that to the people around you who may also be feeling down. I mean, we live in 2026, right? Life is not easy for most people. It's nice to be able to have the ability, the capacity, the want. I'll put it bluntly, the want to go out and put your arm around someone else and make sure they're okay and feed them some of the information that I've learned and some of that mindset that I've learned. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that I don't feel down, but when you can do a run and feel so tired and worn out, but then feel better afterwards, that's another way of thinking about life. You will feel low, you will have things knock you down, but just like that long run where you think you can't finish it, but you do, and afterwards you feel amazing, you get to the end of that depression, you get to the end of that anxiety, you get to the end of that worry, and there is something on the other side. And generally you'll be all right. We are okay. It's like a run. You do a 13-mile run, the first one. I'm not going to say it wasn't fashionable. Let's put it like that. I didn't do it with style. Um,
Yeah,
and you get told, this will finish, you will feel better, and you do, and I think that's an invaluable lesson to learn in life, and you need to sometimes do some tough things to know, and this sounds cliche, but it is true, just what you can do, what you're made of, and I think it's really important, and I think that's the great thing that Poles and Crocs delivers. It gives you a way to push yourself whilst not putting training wheels on you, but just enough support that you're not kind of going completely the wrong direction, but not nannying you, and that makes you feel good. I can do that. I did it by myself. Yes, I had some help. The guys, as you say, have gone through the same thing at some point. No one's sitting there going, we were born like this, Will. You've got to get to our state, and this is us from when we were one. Everyone puts their hand up and goes, yeah, listen, we've had some moments where we probably couldn't do that run either. Um,
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Um, yeah, I think there's something there around um, the additional tools it gives you in your toolkit to deal with other things in life for certain. I think that point you covered off there in saying that it gives you that capacity to understand that it doesn't matter how hard it gets, you can get through it and it gets easier afterwards. I think that's a really, really key point. Um, and also for the rest of the guys in the group, we've all absolutely been there. Um, I didn't start any sort of running seriously until probably the back end of lockdown. So going out and doing big stuff, it's not like I was like so in school, comparative to other people like cross country, I was terrible. I was back of the pack, could not run. So yeah, I'd hate for people to look and think that could never be me. Um, so Edale itself, then on the actual day, do you just want to talk me through your experience of that a little bit and how the day went? Because to jump in, you absolutely smashed it, and that was really, really impressive. And at the end of the day, I was saying to you, the work was all you. You got yourself round that. It was incredible. So, what was your perspective on all of that, and how did the day go?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the lead up, right? The lead up, I was nervous because I'd never done anything like that before. As much as and I do know that all the guys there are great guys and supportive, you're still going on a long run with guys who have done long runs before, and of course, you don't want to let anyone down. This was the mentality that I came in with. So as much as I knew I'd done the training, you don't want to be the one who holds down the pack. Not that anyone would mind, and I'll tell you that now. I could have been 2 hours slower on that run, and I still would have had big smiles at the end of it from everyone, and that's a beautiful thing. No one is being judged by how fast or slow they run when you're in a run like Edale. But yeah, you have to get your bits together. You've got to get the right kit, make sure you got the right jacket. I spent quite a lot on carb drinks and water bottles. Some of the guys just eat sweets. It kind of shows you which level you're at when I'm drinking these carb drinks and sucking them down when I'm running. But yeah, the basis is you get up there and it's an amazing place, Edale. I've never been anywhere like it. I've never camped before. So we got there about 3 in the morning. Everyone has their tents set up or they're staying in cars. And there's not much sleep, to be honest, but we get there, get a couple of hours sleep. Obviously, everyone's kind of feeling a little bit excited, saying hello to people that you meet, you've never met them before. Everyone gets a bit of rest, early morning wake up, get their kit together, you get a bit of food in the morning. And yeah, there was like, I don't know, 20, 25 guys there in the end, felt like that. Some of them have known each other for a long time, some of them were new like me. But everyone is immediately talking with each other. It's not like one of those things where guys are kind of on either side of the room looking at each other. Straight away people are saying, hello, what are you up to? Who are you? And you feel that camaraderie from the beginning, which was lovely for me because I was nervous. So actually having those smiles, guys that I'd met before, guys that I hadn't met before, but everyone with a big smile and everyone kind of just saying, listen, let's have a fun day. Let's go out and do a run and we'll look after each other. But I'll tell you what, that first walk up to that first peak, I was really slow and I was sweating and I looked
It
up and I
was
thought
hot.
it was hot, but when you see these guys running ahead and I was very quickly at the back, um, and a couple of the guys just slowed themselves down just to kind of get me off that first peak because I was like, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? What have I done? What have I done? But then, you get to the top, you suck down your first calorie pack, a carb pack, 90 grams, load of water, and then you just start running, and someone's at the front leading the way. It's a beautiful mountaintop or hilltop. It runs 360 around the base. So as soon as you're at the top, you can kind of see where you're going to run, and it looks long. You don't get up there and go, oh yeah, that looks easy. There is a mountaintop or a hilltop that, is craggy. There's different types of rocks, and some of it, and the bits that I actually found really fun at the beginning was actually just scrambling over rocks, boulders. Some of it looks like Lord of the Rings. You're getting up there. Think actually, Vinny, you might have been actually wearing a Lord of the Rings outfit the whole time. So you definitely made that more real when I was looking around inspecting the. And again, I've never really been on a hilltop or a mountaintop before, so yeah, even more impressive that you ran around it looked like a very heavy cloak. I was very glad that I wasn't the one wearing it. But even more impressive that you did it wearing it. And yeah, you start off running. I wear the Garmin most of the time, but to be honest, when you're running and you're running around rocks and trying to sort of watch your foot, you don't really look at the watch. Your brain doesn't go there. You are just trying to make sure you're not stepping on the wrong rock. It's quite hazardous, but in a way which kind of keeps you alive. You got to make sure that your foot's in the right place. It's not just running on soft ground. It's not tarmac like it is round with me. It's not Dulwich Park, which is nicely groomed lawns. And I think that's part of the bit that makes it more special, actually. The fact that you've got to make sure where your footing is. Your brain has to switch off from normal life, and you are just running. It's solely running with a group of guys. You don't really care where you end up. At least I didn't. Most of the time I was at the back. Didn't feel like I was letting anyone down. I just ran. Every now and then we'd have stops to have a bit of food and drink. We'd have bits of our pouches, quick 5 minutes. You look over the views, amazing views. While I'm trying to run my hardest, some of these guys are running with cameras. And so, you can see straight away that the team is well versed, and you feel comfortable, confident. Someone came up behind me after, I don't know, half an hour and said, mate, I'd have one of those carb packs, And so people are looking out for you from the beginning. I was not left to my own devices, but at the same time, again, I was not nannied through that process. I was running myself. No one was kind of coming up to me and like pushing me from behind. I was left to be the back at some points, but in a good way. And then that kind of pushes you to go to the front and see what you've got, And 6 hours, 6.5 hours, I'll tell you, went faster in that 22 miles, 23 miles than my Saturday 5 mile run. Because in the end, you are enjoying it. You're seeing the sights, you're seeing people around you that you're getting to know whilst you're running. You can have conversations with them about probably nothing too deep, but just little snippets of life. What have they been up to? What's the good bits? What's the bad bits? And actually having that conversation whilst you're running is really cathartic because it's not too deep, but you get that sense of kind of, oh, I get you, and you get me. And then you fall back again and the next person comes to you, end up chatting to loads of different guys you've never met before, all from different walks of life, but all coming for that kind of same, I guess, just peace of mind to some extent, to clear your head and get out of the city or get out of your day to day. But it's tough, there's moments where I could barely talk, where guys were having full blown conversations in front of me. And, that is part of the kind of, okay, well, that's the next step. Next step, I'll do this next year and I'll do this with a more proper conversation, or I'll help the next guy. I'll be telling that new person, go and get their 90-gram pouch out. I'll give that person my 90-gram pouch because you feel like you will build in confidence. As you're running along, I thought to myself, gosh, what is next? What is the next run I want to do? What's the next challenge I want to do? you get to halfway, actually we go into a little town, everyone grabs a Coke, or some people grabbing an ice cream and stuff like that. So there's a tiny bit of luxury in it as well, a little snippet of luxury. But then you're back straight up the mountain again, another hard walk up the mountain. And at that point people are tired, and you have to get to that point where you're kind of like, okay, yeah, this is the pain, this is the bit that from your other runs will pass. And there's a lot of ups and downs. There's, people, you would think that the up is the tricky bit. For me, it's the running down, which sounds counterproductive, but actually running down and trying to get the footing right. And because it's not something that, especially in London, we do very much, running down hills, or it's, it's tough. So actually for me, and Vinny, thank you very much for being there at the end. And I've got to say, when I was coming down, you being there, um, in your outfit motivated me so much to just think, if he could do it and he's running in his outfit, I got to get going. I got to get going. Um, and so, yeah, I made a slow descent down at the end, and wonderfully, all the guys who had finished maybe 15, 20 minutes before, um, clapped me down, which was a fantastic feeling. It was a bit embarrassing at first, but when you realize at the bottom that it's clapping the last man in, it's all part of that process of kind of, yeah, this was hard, but they aren't clapping because they're being difficult or they're trying to embarrass you. They're clapping because they actually care you've done something difficult. And you can see it in everyone's faces. It isn't about being the last man. It's about, you are the last man on this time, but what are you going to be next time? What are you going to be next year? And as they say, everyone is going to be a last man once. I don't mind being the last man, but I'm very, very glad that I had that adventure and that journey with all the guys that I did that run on, because I left that run a different person. I really did, mentally, physically, and it's only been a week and a half. I guess the biggest thing is, do I still run? Did I do it and think, oh, I've done that now? Did I tick that box and go back to the couch? But actually, and it's a bit shocking for myself, but I've ran. I'm going to run today. I've been to the gym. So I think when you put change in your life physically, mentally, and then add a group of like-minded people, maybe not even like-minded, but people who appreciate that everyone goes through some kind of struggle and are happy to help in their own way, everyone. Again, I think that's a very beautiful thing. And it's an amazing thing that you guys have set up with Poles and Crocs. It's I can see it's helped other people, and I know it's helped me, and it's changed my life.
That's absolutely incredible. Love listening to that. Your recounting the events of the day, it was absolutely incredible. And yeah, that end bit, everybody clapping you in, that was genuine joy at seeing you crack that. I think in particular your story of how far you've come in that space of time is just absolutely amazing, and it's inspiring to see somebody lock in and do that. Um, so I guess the question is, are we going to see you out with us again?
And you definitely are. I think the next run that I've kind of spoken to the guys about is the Yorkshire Three Peaks. So it's January.
Oh
Yeah.
yes,
So
that's so good.
and that's a definite, and that was, as soon as I came down the mountain, it was that feeling of like, it wasn't like, oh gosh, I've done this, that's done. It was, what is next? What do I want to do next, help with next? But there's also the ability, not only to do a run myself with you guys, but also to help some of the other guys with their bigger runs, and be part of the team in a different way. So it isn't just, run yourself and go and do those big runs. There's other ways I know that people can help, doing small sections of running, or going and helping with food or drinks, or, there's so many ways that people can be part of that Poles and Crocs team without actually, having to do the long runs. That is an end result, but you could help in different ways. You can be part of the team in different ways, which again is amazing. But I'll be doing the running.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff going on with the group where you can get involved in different ways for certain. I'm very excited to hear that you'll be at Yorkshire Three Peaks in January, which I think I should be at as well. That's a really fun day out. Um, yeah, I think um, there was one other point I had one question, and I'd not really set out any format, but there was one question for certain I wanted to ask you, which was, I suppose for anybody else that might be hearing this or listening to any part of this and looking at the pools and Crocs for the first time or wanting to get involved in somewhere and they're a little bit apprehensive, what would be your one piece of advice to them?
I think the one thing that I would say is you I'll give them two pieces of advice. You got to be ready in your own mind to make some changes, and these guys will help you make those changes. So if you're ready, reach out to the team, and they will be more than happy to point you in the right direction and ensure that every step of the way you are doing what you need to do to get your goals achieved. And I think that that's the easiest way to say it. If you've got the right mindset, these guys have got the right recipe to ensure you'll reach that goal. And if anyone can prove that, it's myself. And I'm sure there'll be some photos up and pictures up of my last runs and what I look like and what I could do last year and what I look like and what I can do now. And it's a big difference.
Incredible. You're very easy to interview, mind. Absolutely incredible. Natural.
Well, I think you're a good interviewer, Vinny. I think that, it's also nice because I've known you for, a good few years, right? And and again, this is the perfect show and sign of what the group is like. You make friends, you'll meet people, and you'll get to know them very quickly, and you'll feel close to those people. It's easy to talk to you, right? Because I've done a 23-mile run with you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
we know
Shared
each other.
suffering.
Yeah, exactly. Shared suffering.
Um, I think that's covered everything. I'd kind of like had a loose map in my head, but is there anything else that you want to share or talk about? Any of it at all? Your experience with your Couch to 5K, your history, Edale, future plans, your life, anything else you thought that you might like to share today?
No, to be honest, I think, you know, I'll make it clear that you can come into this with any starting point, Don't feel like because you're not at a certain stage, this is not for you. I think that's the number one thing that I'd want to make clear to anyone here. If I can do this, again, it might sound cliche, but if I can do this, I promise you, you can do this with the guys' help. So, I can't make it any more clear that I could not run more than a minute a year ago. I couldn't do sit-ups. I couldn't do a pull-up. I'd never done a squat. The thought of running around a mountaintop was a pipe dream. And I just want to make it clear that if you want to change your life, even a little bit, you don't have to do a 22-mile run, but they'll get you to the point that you want to get to, even if it's just doing a 5K and you're going to be happy with that. So I would reach out.
I think